And sometimes we have to tell you, you're probably hurting yourself because you're waiting. Because waiting is a cost. And a lot of people right now, in fact, I would say right now, a lot of people are putting a lot of things on hold. They're putting the brakes on of decisions that they should make for psychological reasons that they're not willing to face right now. It's happening today.
When we have anxiety regarding money, it means we're afraid. If we're afraid, okay, let's see what we're afraid about. What are we worried about? And work on that.
Welcome to the Market Call Show, where we discuss what's happening in the markets and the impact on your investments. Tune in every Thursday on Apple Podcast, Google Play, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Welcome to the Market Call podcast. Today, I have Gitit Kaufman with me. She is a licensed professional counselor. She helps people improve their social and emotional issues to reach mental peace. Now, as you know, this is a financial podcast. So you might be asking, why in the heck do we have a licensed therapist who has a master's degree in counseling on this podcast? And the answer is really simple. We know that the biggest reason that people do not reach financial wellness in their life is because of the way they respond to money decisions, relationships, and how to make good choices under conditions of uncertainty. And financial psychology is the biggest element that can help people do better in that area. So in this episode, we're going to talk about the role of financial psychology and financial planning. We discuss money, people, relationships, how to make big decisions that impact your financial peace and security. And we also touch on how to be aware of the issues and deal with them more head on so you can feel confident in your choices and have a happier, fuller life. I hope you enjoy this podcast. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, it's so good to have you on, my podcast. I'll tell you the main reason why I want to talk to you. In our world, we have this study. It's called behavioral finance. You may have heard of it, probably have. Behavioral finance is one set of studies that is like, what do people do with money, right? And how do they tend to make errors, systematic errors? But it's not the same as financial psychology, which you enlightened me to.
Yeah, thank you.
So I really kind of wanted to dive into that. I mean, you have a master's degree in counseling, and you have been working with people with emotional issues and things like that. What would you say the number one starting point is for a couple? Let's start with a couple to think about their money issues.
So I think I would see that as looking at infected wound when it comes to money and relationship that we like to avoid. It looks gross. It's painful when we're touching it. But the moment we will start kind of working on healing it, it will be painful at the beginning. But with time and work and dedication, we will help to improve it. And actually, we will just end up with a scar. So that's how I see those two subjects together. That, first of all, we don't want to touch, not the relationship stuff going on or the money. But I think it is important to face what we're trying to avoid because it's not going to disappear. It will be painful at the beginning, but when we're doing it together, it will help us heal and work on it to improve it. So that's kind of my nutshell for that. And I think the biggest piece is we are in a relationship. The relationship, it's not just me and my partner or you and your partner, but it's also you with yourself. And the history you came from, your culture, your relationship with your parents, the way you've been raised. So there's a lot of element that we're not aware of, but we're bringing to the relationship. And if we're not going to face them or be aware of them, we cannot make the healthy or the right steps for working on our finance.
So most of the time, is there an avoidance issue? Is it usually?
Usually.
So something suppressed that needs to be. So now most, like in our world, we're always in the world of numbers.
Yeah.
So, and you can't stay in the realm of numbers. So you might have the best laid out plan, but without actually doing it,
Right.
you have to first face those things. So that's the whole
It
issue.
is. It is a big issue because maybe I'll use another metaphor. It's like having a dental issue, right? We don't want to face it. It's painful physically. It's painful in our money-wise, right? So it's like, we'll wait. When time will come, or not now, or we're giving us so many excuses not to work on that. But it's not going to improve if we're not going to work on it, to improve it, or to face it. So yeah, it's painful, it's hard, but we need to find the right time to say, okay, we need to work on it. So,
and there's so many different issues we could talk about.
Yeah.
So can you speak a little bit to how you would think about that, and what specific things you think people can do in evaluating? I know you, and I don't know if you can self-evaluate. You need help in some way, but maybe you can walk through some of the issues with, personal relationship, how you would approach the personal relationship with money.
right. So this is actually goes with your first question, that when we come in to understand money and relationship, we first need to see the first step of how we are with our own relationship with money, because that impact how we are in our relationship. So usually, again, we don't want to face our own issues with money, but that's kind of a main crucial core to face, because where we are today with our money comes with what we learn from our family of origin, right? Yeah. What we saw at home, how our money, how our parents manage money. Yeah. So for me, for instance, when it comes to money, I'm anxious because I always have that worry. And again, this is what I faced with my family of origin, that there's always short of money.
Right.
And there is a lot of uncertainty. And who likes uncertainty? But this is something we're carrying with us, that it's a fear that we kind of hold on to. I can say to myself that I'm always worried that, maybe there's going to be time that we're not going to have enough money, or what ifs, right? So usually our anxiety, it's actually a beautiful tool that our body has. And this is what we call the fight, flight, or freeze mode. The anxiety comes from the reaction of the brain. There is a small part in our brain that calls amygdala. It's a walnut shape. That's how the term. And that part is help us to protect ourselves when it comes to danger. So usually when we are afraid, it's a sign that the body is trying to tell you, hey, something is off, something is scary, you need to do something. So we'll either freeze, because again, that's something that we'll learn, and it helps us to assess and think what to do, or we'll fight. It's like, okay, I'm here to attack and I'll do all I can. Or we're running away, we're flying, we're fleeing. So that's kind of three options that usually our brain facing anxiety. And I think it's important for us, especially today in our society, we think anxiety is as a negative thing. We don't want to admit we have it. It's a wrong thing. But actually, I believe in the right percentage of it, it's a healthy tool for us to protect ourselves. So when we have anxiety regarding money, it means we're afraid. If we're afraid, okay, let's see what we're afraid about. What are we worried about? And work on that.
Rather than avoiding it.
Exactly.
So a lot of people, when they go talk to their CPA or lawyer or financial advisor, people with that kind of background or conditioning, I don't know what you would call it, will tend to clam up. And then what they'll wind up doing is they'll self-destruct because they're not actually talking about what they need to talk about with that professional. So it's like when you go to the doctor's office, the doctor says, drop your drawers, right? Well, in that case, most people do, right? But sometimes when it comes to money, all that I hate the word baggage because baggage sounds negative, but all that history will limit them from making good choices.
Right. And for you here now, you're saying baggage, you don't like it because it brings a lot of negativity, right?
Right.
It's like it's something we're carrying forever and it's
like
heavy
on
on
our
us.
back, yeah.
It is.
Yeah,
it is
yeah,
like a backpack with lots of heavy weight, right? All
Yeah.
those bricks or whatever you want to call it. Nobody likes that, right? So here you are again, that's the negativity you bring to your mind
Right.
that, oh, I don't want to talk about that. No, right? So you already coming with that way of how to face it, right? So this is the meaning, and this is how people, I think it's important for people to understand the meaning of the words we're using, right? Baggage. That's it. Your brain is shut
Yeah.
down now.
Yeah, exactly.
Because again, it's
Words
either
are
ready to
powerful.
fight. Yes, it is, right?
Yeah.
And we're not attuned to that. We're not really aware of it. But that's why it's important to face that, hey, it impacts us. It impacts us mentally, it impacts us emotionally, and it impacts us even physically. And when we're aware of that, how, again, that's part of the body, how the amygdala, and I kind of didn't go all of what I had in mind, about how the amygdala helps us to physically react to that danger. And I know I'm kind of sidetracked, but
No, it's okay.
I think it's important
We
to
can
understand.
go anywhere. It's okay. There's no, I have a little bit of an outline, but we can go wherever we need to go.
Okay, good. Because I think it's important piece when we are aware of how our body reacts in a stressful environment or when it comes to fear, it's a good way for us to say, hey, hold on a minute, what can we work on? What can we change? So again, if there's a danger, we might start sweating. So when you're nervous, when it's something new, so your body is kind of more trying to protect you. So you're either sweating, either your voice is at kind of pitch high, like what I have now. You're shivering in your fingers, you're unease. This is a sign for your body to start saying, do something. I don't like that, right? And that's okay because we're not used to be in an uncomfortable situation. And usually money brings us to a place that we don't feel comfortable because, again, that's the baggage, as you said, that comes from home.
And it doesn't matter whether you have a lot of it or a little of it.
No.
Those things affect everybody.
No, right, because money
can affect it.
Yes, because money, we learn from our memories, right, from our experience. Money reflects, it's like a mirror of who we are, how we see ourselves from the inside.
I have a hard time accepting that.
How come?
Because, and I know it's true in a lot of ways, but because, well, I should say it this way. I have a hard time accepting it from the standpoint of wanting to believe it for myself. Like, I feel like we should be better, or we should think at a higher level than to allow something as materialistic as money to be a reflection of us.
Right.
And I know that sounds...
No, you're right. But you use...
I use the word should.
Exactly. And this is, again, the tricky piece. When we are saying should, we're unconsciously bringing the guilt piece that tied
true.
with money, right? Yeah. Oh, we should not see it this way. We should not talk like that. But first of all,
there.
You do, right? And it's still there, right?
Yeah.
And that's, again, a reflection of the meaning it brings to us, right? And especially today in our society, money is a tool.
Right.
Is a tool for us to get our needs. But as people, we sometimes lose track of the meaning of it. And we bring actually more space, more weight to it, that it's like, oh, it's actually reflect who I am.
You know what? And it leads to big, serious flaws.
Exactly.
I was reading a study. Well, there's a very successful technology executive who pointed out that when before he made a lot of money, people thought he was, pretty smart, went to a good school. But then he was very successful. And all of a sudden he said, my IQ tripled in everybody's mind. Like somehow he says, I'm not any smarter right now, but why do people think I'm a lot smarter because I made all this money? There is, and I work with, rich people, not so rich people. I can tell you there is no direct correlation between intelligence and how much money you have.
No.
But people tend to make that reflection. Like somehow Steve Jobs is more intelligent than the rest of society.
Right.
But was Einstein smarter than Steve Jobs? I mean, I don't know. Probably so. Who had more money,
And that's what I mean. It's a mirror.
Yeah.
When you look at the mirror, you're not truly seeing yourself. You come with prejudice or how you want to see yourself or what you see behind those eyes.
Why do we allow money to be a mirror, though? I mean, why is that?
Because we lost the core of the meaning of it, right? Again, the money is a tool to help us get what we want, or to provide our needs, and through that we lost our journey. It's a journey, right? It takes time to know how to handle money, and we lost that because we learned to prioritize things differently. Exactly as you said, it's a fraud. We're trying now. Money become a way to tell us how we feel about ourselves, or how good we are, or how smart we are, right? If I'll see your car, it means that's it. You're amazing, right? And this is the difference between being rich and being wealthy.
In the Talmud, a long time ago, it says, "Who is a rich man?" And the answer was the person who is happy with what they have.
Exactly. And that's something we lost on the way.
You said money can be a fraud. We can allow it to be a fraud. That's a good word, fraud.
It is.
It's a harsh word.
It is.
But it's a pretty true representation of what can happen if you allow money to be the gauge of your worth.
Exactly. Because we're trying to please our neighbors, to show off, right? It's kind of a game that it starts to prove how important we are, how smart we are by our money. If you'll see the way I'm dressing up, this is how you perceive me, right?
That's true.
Right?
And some people put more emphasis than others.
Yes.
Like they'll notice everything about the brand that you're wearing and all that stuff.
Yes.
I remember as a kid, certain people would have certain jeans that was like the rich kids had the jeans. Right. My parents never had any money.
Yeah.
So I always had like the Levi's, and I felt jealous of them because they had the cool jeans, and I see that even with my daughter and my son. The school they go to, some of these kids are very, they drive this. And like, Dad, you need to buy me a BMW or a Tesla or something. And I'm just like, no, we're not doing that. But it's even if you can, should you? Right.
And this is a reflection of where we are not individual. We live in a society, and the society impacting us. Exactly how you describe that we're trying to get what our neighbor has or what is expected from where we live, our environment, our society, or our family even, right?
So whatever baggage, I'm using that word baggage.
Right.
I need to replace that word with experiences and beliefs, maybe.
But that's the thing. You see, the fact that you're aware of the impact that word has on you, and you're like, hold on a minute, I need to change it. This is it. This is how we need to approach relationship. This is how we need to approach money. When we start realizing the impact it has, that we don't feel comfortable with it, and checking with ourselves how to change that. What will sit better with us?
So
that's what
having
matters.
The awareness starts the process of whether or not you can make a change. First, you have to be aware that whatever that is that you're working with is having a negative impact on your money relationship.
Right.
Your relationship to money.
Definitely. For me, it was like, oh no, I learned I need to work hard for money. It's not coming.
It's not going to fall out of a tree.
And but this comes with. So as you can hear by my name and accent, I'm an immigrant. I wasn't born and raised here, but for my parents, you're living in America, right? So you're living the dream. You need to make lots of money, and so it's expectations of you chose that. So prove us that you create lots of money. And it's the meaning we're attached to money that we're carrying with us. So it's the attachment piece.
Well, what is a healthy meaning that you should attach to money?
That's a good question. And I think it's very personal because as you start saying, money brings their values that we're carrying with us since we start being aware of creating meaning in life. So it's the values, it's the memories, it's what we see as meaningful to us. And I see that as, I know it sounds lame, but it's like anything in life. If that impacts your daily life in an unhealthy way, when you start seeing that it comes in with your relationship with your partner or with your relationship with your friends or even your kids, that means that something needs to change. So again, it brings you back to what you feel comfortable with, right? So when it comes to money, yes, we need to take risks, right? But are you listening to your friends' suggestions or advices, or are you saying, you know what, this is real, this is serious, I need to consult with an expert, with someone.
So where do you get your values from? So it starts usually from your parents, and that their values came from their parents,
right?
And their experiences and all that. So that's this kind of the foundation of you, where you first get your values started. But then you start having your own experiences, and then you may move away from your parents' values, maybe move closer towards it. So some people are blessed and they have good values sets that were taught to them when they were young. Others do not and have other things that they need to overcome. So what's important about money to you? If you're planning to retire and you want to do it with confidence, I highly recommend downloading a free report that I put together called a 10-point checklist for a worry-free retirement. All you have to do is just go to retireready.live and download a free copy of that report. It'll help you plan for retirement with confidence. It's a step-by-step guide of best practices that could help you.
Right. So here what you described is a story that we inlined, right? How you just saw the money, the values that you brought with, the experience. This is a story you created in your brain, and that's what you decide to, hey, yeah, it's kind of a junction. Do I follow what I've been taught, or do I say, hey, I had enough, I want something else for myself? And I have to say, if you're asking me, I see it as a way to find a healthy balance from where we came from, where we are today, and where we want to go. And I think it's important not to forget where you came from, because this is the basic for you, right? The values, the meaning in life, what matters to you. You're talking about the Talmud, right? It's part of who you are. But if you recognize that this is not going healthy or smoothly with where you are now, it's okay to create your own story. It's okay to make a shift and check with yourself what goes for me and with my wife, because we are a team now. And when it comes to finance, you're not alone there. You have a family to take care of. You have a spouse you need to consider. So we need to do it together. But again, to be aware of where you came from and create that as a journey together.
So let's talk a little bit about spouses. So now we have, each individual person has all of these experiences, and now they're coming together. Now there's this chemistry that happens when you get together. So most people don't properly go through all of the ins and outs of that before they get married. Unfortunately, a lot of people just kind of get married and then they figure stuff out. Just imagine that you have a couple sitting down and they're doing a financial plan for themselves. What would be the first thing that they should discuss to try to understand their dynamics that would help them make better choices?
Right.
It's a broad question, but
it is. But you brought again the should, right? And it's important because we're not talking about money, right? And you jump to marriage, right? To couple. But I see that as a step before. When you are single, you're not just all of a sudden, oh, now we're a couple. There's a process that comes, that there's like a line between, right? Until when you have that journey of looking for the right person to have relationship together. And I think that's what our society is missing, that when it comes to finding, for dating, right? When we want to, we have that in mind, we need to look for the right person for us. So we'll ask questions about, what do you like, right? What movie do you like? To get to start getting familiar with who we are dating, and is that a good match? Is that a good fit for me? So we'll ask about colors, we'll ask about
what's your favorite ice cream?
Ice cream, right? What things you like to do.
Yeah.
We will never, well, I shouldn't say never, but small chances you will ask about money relationship, right? How do you see yourself with money?
Absolutely.
How do you operate with money, right?
People don't ask those questions.
No. And then
they get married.
Right.
And then you're dealing with, that was kind of my point. It was,
Right.
It's like most people don't do it. So, but if we did, so one thing we can do as a parent, if we have kids that are not married yet, is to help them think about how they would approach a future mate.
Right. And I see that as, again, talking about money, it's being vulnerable. Because again, as you said, it's the luggage, it's that negativity that we bring into. And we usually don't want to be vulnerable. And it's kind of, I don't want to talk. Nobody likes that. I don't like that. Right? And it's okay. That's normal.
Yeah. Well, it's a sign of, for men, I think, or maybe and women too, it can be a sign of weakness, or it can be interpreted as a sign of weakness.
Exactly.
But if you're really more interested in getting a good outcome, you kind of have to do it. You don't have to like air it out to the world, but you and your family and your spouse, whatever, should work it out.
Right. And I think it's important to understand what's the reason for us to feel vulnerable, right? And again, it's the uncertainty, right? There's a lot of questions that we're not aware, and we always want to know, right? We always want to feel strong and control. But when it comes to money, because we're talking about our future, and I'm not sure if you answer your previous question, but again, it's finding the balance between the past, present, and future. And I have to say, one of my clients kind of provided that long time ago, a nice mirror for me. It's like driving in a car. When we're driving, we need to glance at our small mirror to see where we're coming from, right? The past. If there's something, if someone comes in front of us, so we need to prepare ourselves, right? And in front of us, there's this huge kind of place for us to look, right? It needs to be kind of, we have that windshield very wide. But we're missing that need to balance with where we are in the right moment, in the present. Are you truly focusing on driving, or are you messing around with something, with the kids, or with the radio, right? Or your brain is somewhere else, or are you on the phone?
Well, that's a big problem today. We have so many distractions with social media, and I mean, everybody is distracted.
Yeah.
From the present and dealing what's in front of you right now. I like what you said with the front window is very wide. So that implies that you need to be looking at a lot of different things. The amount of stuff that's coming at you every day, as in the moment, is a lot.
Right.
As you're looking in the future. But you do need to understand that there could be something from your past can come out of nowhere and get in your blind spot, and then you're trying to make a turn and you're trying to make a change, and that past, because you're not aware of it, will destroy, you have an accident or something.
Exactly. And to be able to pass that, to be okay, it's important to visualize or to think about the long term, right? That by the end of the day, we want to get home safely, right? And this is something that we always need to remember, the long-term goals when it comes to money, when it comes to relationship, that we'll make mistakes. It will be hard, but we'll be okay if we will learn how to balance that appropriately. So we need to be consistent, right? And again, you're right. It's hard to find that.
Long-term versus short-term.
Sorry?
Well, I think that's a big struggle that most people have with finances is long-term versus short-term.
Exactly. Because we
Long-term
want,
thinking.
again, our society want quick fix, right? Give me the pill, I'll be okay, right? Make me rich fast and quick. We see that on television. We see that on the radio. We see that everywhere we go. We don't have patience. We see that on the roads. I need to get home quickly. I don't care if I'm kind of, you're on my way, move, right?
Well, road rages stats are up. I don't know if you may have heard that. They're up again, and they kind of move in waves.
Because it's a reflection of what's going on in our life, in our current place. And I think that's why it's important to, and it goes back to our core belief system. As human being, the term itself, we are part of a society, we are part of something. We're not supposed to live alone. And that's being vulnerable, right? We don't like that. But that's part of admitting that it's not a weakness to say, hey, I need help. It's actually a strength because you're admitting, saying, oh, I cannot handle that. I need someone else to help me. And you're searching for the right person.
Yeah, that's a real big thing. I know in my upbringing, it was always ingrained in me that you need to be thinking about what you need to do and be as self-sufficient as possible and be as bulletproof as you possibly can from dangers and threats and to be strong in doing that. And many times what that'll do is that'll lead you to the belief that I don't need to ask for help. But then, and I learned that that was wrong later, but I had to learn it not from my family. I had to learn it from experiences that I had where I knew I needed help.
Right. I wouldn't use the term wrong. I will go back to percentage. That's how you were raised and that's fine, but we need to check realistically speaking. Can that be? Realistically speaking, can you always be right? Can you always be doing the right? No, right?
It's a helpful belief to some extent, but it's not completely the whole picture.
Right. And again, so it's okay to hold that, to use that, but you need to learn to check that with your reality. Is that something that is accurate? And is that something that you're benefiting right now? So that's how you can tilt that scale weight of knowing what's the right thing to do, right? Because we always going back to our society, go, right? We're not pausing, assessing, where are we right now? What do we need right now?
Yeah, if you don't have a good marriage relationship, the money thing just exacerbates it. Yeah, so like you could see, we see that all the time. It's unfortunately, I've seen many clients divorce. I mean, many.
Yeah.
And we're now kind of in an uptick now in it, and the younger people are having all sorts of relationship problems, and that's what actually got me thinking about talking to you too. Was I've been thinking about writing another book because of things that I'm seeing, and it has to do more with relationships and like how things are going wrong. And it's amazing because a lot of times things go wrong financially, not because you don't make enough money, not because you haven't. It's really because you're not doing what you know you should do, and most people know what they need to do. I mean, it's not rocket science.
No, it's not because it's basic, right? If you need to leave less than what you earn, that's kind of the ground rule regarding money.
Right.
But in relationship, we don't do that because we're checking, again, we're comparing ourselves to our neighbors, to where we came from, and no, I want more, right? It's kind of this greedy thing of, and you're not really concrete with yourself and with your spouse of, hold on a minute, is this something that is right for us, right? We want to have this big mansion. Yeah, it looks good, right? But what does it require us to do?
Yeah, and that's one thing that we do see a lot is that a lot of people, so it's in tiers. Like there's people that are, maybe blue collar workers that they do have a lower income, and it's harder for them to save just because their basic income is not much more than just what it takes for housing and food and the basics. And then you have a lot of people too that fall in this category where they're making good income, but they're choosing to consume more than they should. They're choosing to buy a house that's larger than they should because the system will let them buy the house that's larger than they should. And they're choosing to buy things to make them look rich, real wealth versus perceived wealth. There's a huge gap. And that's a real problem, I think.
It is.
With just not knowing. And a part of it is not knowing the numbers, but a lot of it is you kind of know, but the desire, in my mind, and correct me if I'm wrong, the desire to appear a certain way is more important to them than the actual reality of what their money situation is.
Exactly. And again, that's our need to prove others of where we are and how much we accomplished, right? So we're leaving this artificial or fake, as we said before, fake world. But if we'll sit down, truly be really honest with ourselves, we'll really realize that we're not really living fully to what sits with us because we keep trying to pretend we have something that we don't hold, really. And it's, first of all, it's exhausting. And sometimes we keep doing it and we're waking up when it's too late. But that brings that need to be honest first with yourself, where you are, what matters to you regarding life, the purpose of life. And that's what I'm trying to say, that money is a reflection of how far aware we want to see ourselves. But it's not really, we're not really in tune to where we truly are.
Yeah, one of the things that you mentioned when I was talking to you prior to this, you had mentioned that kind of Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Oh, yep.
So, maybe you can explain that. I'm sure many people know what that is, but like the importance of that.
Right. So that brings me back to, as you talked about, the need, right? We're using money to fulfill our needs. Because if we think, if we'll buy stuff, it's covering for what we don't have, right? And this is why it's important to work on what you truly need. And Maslow is part of having that, satisfying our 5 basic needs. So we all have that. The first one is the need for love, loving ourselves unconditionally.
Wow, I didn't think of that one as being the first one, but okay.
Yeah. Again, when we are not finding love from within us, like truly understanding who we are, and we start looking for love from the outside, and then sometimes we can make it hurting ourselves because we'll choose harmful places.
So that includes loving yourself. Is that what you were saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
And then love from others too.
Yes. There's also this need of acceptance. We need to accept who we are and where we are right now. And again, sometimes if we don't, so those needs are impacting our behavior. So if we're not going to get the love from the inside, we'll look outside. If we're not going to feel accepted the way we are, we'll look for it for the outside. Then there's this feel of valued or worth. If we don't feel worthy, we'll make bad choices, right? Because again, we will look for things to make us fulfill that need.
When do we first start doing that? Is that like teenage years or?
Even before.
Really?
Even before,
Okay.
because you're looking for claps, right? As a kid, it's like, oh, good job,
Yeah,
right?
okay.
You always this is how kind of something that is embedded in us. We'll waiting for that reassurance or encouragement from other people. And we'll lose that concept of learning to feel worthy from within. There's the security piece. That's another need, that do I feel safe? And this is important that we forget. right? Again, if the body is saying, oh, wow, I'm nervous, which means I don't feel safe. Okay, what do I need to do, right? It will impact my behavior.
And that's like housing, food.
Exactly. Oh, and it goes,
shelter.
you're right. Right. And that's part of the Maslow. One more thing before we go to Maslow, there's this feeling of self-efficacy, feeling kind of, oh, I'm meaningful. I'm doing something that is good, or feeling adequate with what I do. And you're right. This goes back to the Maslow, who he's using hierarchy, used to, I mean, it's still there, that when we get our basic needs, that is food, shelter, warmth, we'll be okay, right? And Maslow goes with the hierarchy of Maslow is where we need to follow up that hierarchy. It goes from the baseline. The baseline is the bigger of what we need. And when we feel stable, we can go to our next level. So yeah, we need to feel that we get all of that, right? We have enough fluid, we have enough water, we feel safe, we can move on to the next level, which is safety, right? Feeling safe from within, like knowing that we feel secure, we'll feel stable.
From within, though.
From within.
That's different.
It is.
That's different. That's peace.
It is peace.
And where does that come from?
And that's freedom.
Yeah.
When we have that, it's a way for us to get that freedom. To your question, where we get that, it's things from we do for us. Yeah, sorry.
Yes, no, you're right. I didn't mean to interrupt you there. There are people that make us feel unsafe. Like, what was it that I was reading? I was reading an article about how certain people will spur something in your brain, in your wiring, that will make you feel, from prior experiences or something, make you feel unsafe. Maybe you had a bad experience and you will project on another person that person is just like some other scenario when they're maybe are not the same. And like I know that happens a lot in the financial advising business, where people will have associations with financial advice, and then they'll have an immediate negative reaction that actually is self-defeating. But that also extends to other people, just certain people. If they're not like us, we feel like, we're different enough, that makes you feel unsafe. That I think is a real issue, because a lot of people are not taught at a young age to be more accepting. I mean, I grew up when I was really young in South Chicago, where there was all different types of ethnicities. So I was kind of used to that. I'm okay with that. Some people are not. I mean, where we live here today, if you looked at a pie chart, it's white, and then there's a little sliver of other, right? Yeah. So like, for example, my kids, you have to purposefully show them, let's go out to other areas where, I actually took them to South Chicago so they could actually see what it looks like. And it was a little bit of a shock for them.
Right.
I know I'm kind of all over the place, but
it's...
the feeling of safety comes from a lot of different things, as well as people, like who you surround yourself, where you decide to be. And if you and your spouse have a different vision about what that is,
right. And it's a big part of it.
You might have a problem.
Yeah. And that's why it's always important to bring us back to that 5 basic needs. Do you feel safe? Do you feel comfortable? And you're right, it can be triggered by certain people who kind of poking something that we experienced in our past. And that's why it's so important to work on that. And first of all, as you said, to be aware, I make the connection, right? This advisor start triggering stuff that happened.
It could be a doctor, it could be a lawyer, it could be a car salesman.
Right. Or it could be that he's touching subject that you don't want to face, right? It's not him. He represent the core issue of money that, I don't have enough, which means I'm not worthy, right? It's all that, like it's a chain that we are kind of adding on to it to create a necklace, right? So it is important to start working on yourself and say, hey, what does it mean? What am I afraid of? it's okay. First of all, yeah, you admit you something is bothering you. Great. Okay, now we need to go to the next level of realizing, what are you afraid of? What's going on, right? And I have to say, personally, when it comes to all that finance, money, they're using high level of language that I'm not familiar. And that triggers me because I do not know. I do not understand. And again, when I don't understand, I don't know, that makes me feel unease.
Jargon is not good.
Right.
For somebody who is not trained in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what people usually do. They're stepping away from that subject because they're not familiar. And who wants, again, to show that they're not known enough or they're not clever enough, right? So it's like, oh, nope, it's in the bank and
if you
keep
feel,
delaying
if
that.
it's hard for you to ask a question, if you feel like, oh, I'll look stupid if I ask a question.
Right.
That's a belief that you have inside yourself. But what if you were taught at a young age that the only way that you actually get knowledge is by asking questions?
Right. And that brings back, and that's where sorry for cutting you off, but you're right. This is what we're carrying with us, right? Some families say, no, asking questions mean you're ignorant. You cannot show that, right? No. But you're right. If we're teaching our kids that actually we're here to learn. Every day we need to learn something. And how can you learn without asking questions?
I think for some people, it's natural for them to feel like, I don't want to ask questions.
Because again, you feel vulnerable. When you ask a question, it means you don't know. When you don't know, you're vulnerable, right? There is this chain again that it's creating a lot of negativity in us. And we don't like that.
Well, that leads to stubborn behavior in many people. Where they're stubborn and they don't want to listen to outside things. It's hard to admit when you're wrong.
Oh, again, who wants that? We always want to learn. But again, can we be always right?
No.
We're not. Even Einstein, right? He was not always right. I mean, yes, he was smart. He was clever.
Right.
But that's the magic of life. You don't need to show you're smart. You need to be to use your wisdom to juggle life. And I think it's hard because, again, we always need just to have the last say, right? To show that we know. And it's a culture.
It is a culture.
You
mean like an American culture?
No, I can say from my culture as well.
Yeah.
Coming from my home, this is like, no, you're not talking. If something you don't know, we're not talking about that. And guess what? If we're not talking about that, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's money.
Yeah.
And sorry for saying that, but it's death. Right? Talking about dying. No.
You know, that is true. In the context of a financial advice setting, there is many big decisions that you need to make, and it happens, sometimes it's a big decision, in a lump sum, and then sometimes there's a lot of small decisions that need to be made. But it seems to me like any time you're making a big decision, do you think, tell me if I'm wrong, that people really need to go through this process when they're making any really big decision about money? So I'm focusing on money because that's the topic today. But unfortunately, you pointed out to me that all the other stuff comes along with it. Right. Yeah. You want to.
It's not isolated thing.
It's not.
You're not living on an island. There's so much going on around it.
Right.
And I think that's why when we are aware of it, it will help us to make it easier transition to do it.
But making smart financial choices requires financial psychology.
Yes, it's a big, and that's what we're talking about, that showing the heaviness of it, right? How much it's intertwined with so many other objects. So there's a say, you should sit down and listen. I have something harsh to say, right? To make that decision. And then you're like, you need to lay down, have a night, sleep on it, right? So whenever the decision is heavier, we need to be kind of more closer to ground to be able to make the heavy decision, right? But that's true. We need time to digest. We need time to make that decision. And that's okay. And I think that comes with money. Again, it goes back to our society, having the quick fix. I want to make money fast. It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
No.
It's a fake reality.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I'm wrong. So there's those people who are great in that. But again, it's the small percentage. Most of us, if we look at that bell curve, are in the center, and we cannot make money that fast. We need hard work and dedication, right? And we just need to continue doing it and believing that, yeah, we'll make mistakes on the way, but it's okay. Again, it's a long term, and keep doing, keep on with that hard work and dedication, and you'll be good by the end of it.
No, you're right about time. So a typical situation would be people are thinking about 5 different choices. Should I sell this house and move to Florida, or should we stay here or rent that house out, or should we retire now, or should we retire after a couple years, or should we, all these, this is the typical world that we're in. And so we run scenario analysis. So we have all these fancy tools where we can statistically calculate like the probabilities of success of all these different things. And it's all mathematical, right? And it's all optimized to a goal. So the problem I think that people have, and one of the things that I've come to the conclusion in advising people, is that you have to show that implication, what the implications are of all these decisions from a money perspective. But it's only one part of the perspective.
Exactly.
And then you're not going to be able to make that decision necessarily if it's a big decision right away.
Right.
And sometimes you might hurt yourself in that process. And sometimes we have to tell you, you're probably hurting yourself because you're waiting. Because waiting is a cost. And a lot of people right now, in fact, I would say right now, a lot of people are putting a lot of things on hold. They're putting the brakes on of decisions that they should make for psychological reasons that they're not willing to face right now.
Yes.
It's happening today a lot because interest rates have gone up. And I know I'm getting a little bit into the numbers.
No, it's important.
Interest rates have gone up. Housing prices have gone up. Stock market's down. These types of things get people to freeze. Like you're talking about the amygdala hijacks, right? People are in the freeze mode, and they're not. And this is dangerous for a lot of people. So what does an advisor do to help people along so that they can make choices faster? Sometimes time is important.
Right. But I think the advisors also need to be aware that, I'm sorry, it's not just numbers.
But
Yes.
what if it's detrimental? Like this is the thing that happens a lot. Is
Right,
like
but
a decision
I think-
is like if they don't decide in 3 months or 6 months, it could literally change the outcome dramatically.
Sometimes it's just, again, the words that you're using as an advisor, knowing, I know how hard it is for you. Connecting the dots for the person that it's not just numbers, it's the emotional piece you attach to that. When you address that, there's like a click in their mind saying, oh. I'll give you an example, a personal one. When we sold the house in California, our friend was the realtor, and I'm like, I don't want to mishmash money and business, but my husband said, no, we trust her, and I'm like, okay, we'll do it. And we got into an argument, I and her got into an argument saying, we should ask for more. You're starting with low prices than what I want to sell my home. And she's like, you're selling a house. You're not selling a home. I was so mad, but all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh. So I was, just by that term, I was able to detach myself from that painful process. It's not my home anymore. The moment you decide to sell it, it's not your home. It's a house. And it sounds like, it's very...
We call that the endowment effect.
Exactly.
Because when you own something, you tend to put more value on it than when you don't.
Right. And this is why I think it's important for you guys to see the other side of your clients, that yes, you should be rational decision, but it can be, because again, all what we talked so far,
important.
that it's very emotional. We attach to money.
So the empathy part of it is so important.
Right. And
Understanding that, this is tough.
Exactly.
Because we all have that problem.
Yeah. And I think it's good metaphor, and Dave Ramsey used that a lot, and I love that. We have attachment issue with money. When you pay cash, it's it's harder because you
a
have it in your
card,
head.
yeah, if it's
When it's
credit
credit
card,
card,
it's
you get the same one. So you don't
see
feel
it.
the exchange. So it's easier. And I think when you will realize that how a person you're working with is attached to money, because again, the money is meaning, who am I? It represents who I am, what I gained so far. It will help you understand the harsh decision that he make. When you acknowledge that, you can open his mind to that, oh, first of all, I hear you. I see the challenge in making that decision. So you validate him. By doing that, that's all that we need, right? To be validated, to be seen. When the person get that, it doesn't need to fight with you anymore. Like he's more ease and he's more open to work with you.
Right.
So you help him to get off that by validation. He takes that fence off and he's more open to work with you.
Yeah. A lot of times it's people that you're already working with. It's just they're making a decision. It's like that is time bound.
Yeah.
And that it's hard. And so what I'm hearing you saying is that it's empathy, first understanding what they're going through, empathy, acknowledging it, and hopefully that helps them along the way.
Yes.
But you also, like what that real estate agent said was something that clicked with you. So it was something that made you realize something, that it made you see something in yourself that was an impediment for you to make a decision.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's the connection that you have to make.
Definitely.
And you have to have a connection in general, a real connection.
Yeah. Definitely.
You name of your company is Connect the Dots.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that. A friend of mine, well, not a friend, but somebody who I really admire, a guy named Joe Polish. I don't know if you know who Joe Polish is. He wrote a book that is called What's in It for Them,
Nice.
which is a great book.
Yep.
And one of the things he talks about is connection. And the thing that I realized is that true connection is rare.
Right.
We are truly not connecting with each other. He's got a company called Genius Network, where it's a huge network of people that are really connected. And then there's a lot of people that are in transactional type relationships where they just kind of it's got to be tit for tat, and it's not real connection, and it's not, I recognize you were really somebody important to me for who you are, not for what you could do for me,
Right.
and all that. So I'm sorry, getting all over the place.
No. But you're touching very important stuff. So
Go ahead.
So you're saying in transaction. You make it, by using that term again, you're making it so simple, so lame, but it's not. For me to allow you to do that, I need to trust you.
Right.
And that's part of the connection when it comes to relationship, right? You need to learn to trust yourself, right? Sometimes it's easier for us to trust someone else than us, but that's kind of part of the work. Trust is a crucial element for us to be able to allow you in.
Yeah. So financial advisors, and part of this podcast purpose is to help financial advisors, need to make a true connection before you're going to get the trust. And if you don't have that, you can crunch all the numbers in the world and have all the best advice in the world. That person is not going to respond.
Right.
And you also need to understand, how is it that we can help them? There's some work that needs to be done. All
Prior.
of us need to do.
Yep.
Prior.
Yeah. And I think it's important. And yes, you're right. It will take time. You need to learn how to prove yourself, right? To work on showing, I know it sounds harsh, but for me to trust you, right? I mean, it takes time, but it's important. And the moment you work on that, the rest will be relatively easy or easier.
Trust is a very interesting thing.
Sometimes
it happens very quickly, and sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes it never does, right? So there's a lot of, it's a human thing.
It is.
It is a human
and
thing.
you know what? It's a journey. It doesn't happen all of a sudden. It goes like spiral. Like I can trust you, and then you start questioning. cause me something to question you, and it's kind
Trust
of
takes time.
It takes time, and it's a dance. It's
And
moving forward and back.
If you're always there and you're reliable. I heard somebody say one time that 3 things can help almost any business. The first thing is say please and thank you. The second thing is be on time. And the third thing is do what you say you're going to do. Do you know how many how many businesses don't have people in their organization that don't strive to do that?
Because it's not part of their life. This is something that it's embedded in your relationship. When you congruent with what you said to your wife, to your kids, you build trust. How can you long for that relationship if there's no basic trust? And sometimes we see trust as, right, kind of, I did something wrong to my wife.
Maybe I shouldn't trust somebody.
Or shouldn't trust, right? But if you don't put yourself out there, if you don't allow yourself to be vulnerable in a relationship, any kind of relationship, it's never going to work. And we see trust in relationship as, cheating, right? If you're cheating, that's it. But money can also cause trust issues, right?
Oh, yeah.
And part of I think our society today is we're starting relationship when I'm still not certain about you, so we'll have 2 separate bank accounts, right? And we think that by doing so, this is my money, this is your money, and it's good. I have more control. However, we already establishing that relationship with some kind of instability. What I'm trying to say, it's not healthy to start relationship like that when you're saying, oh no, I don't trust you in money. So how can you trust regarding other important stuff such as raising kids?
Oh, you're bringing up this is an entire new podcast episode, what you're talking about, because it is so embedded in the culture, even today with young people, how they deal with relationships and how marriage has changed, the changes in the economics between men and women, and how that all affects relationships. It's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll talk about that some other time.
But I think it's important to bring that again to the awareness that we're starting already in a down level, right? A step behind, instead of let's put everything on the table and work on that together.
Taking risks.
Do
you feel like you took a risk when you got married?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I did.
I left my family, moved here, and we're like, I'm supposed to trust that person. And you know what? I'll give you another example. When we moved here, I gave my husband-to-be some money because I was afraid to get that money. I mean, holding so much money, I'm like, he'll take that. And then I kind of, oh my gosh, what if he'll take the money? And I went to my dad, and he's like, you know what? If this is how you're going to test your relationship, and he will go without money, so that you'll learn now, right?
Yeah.
You didn't.
Wow, that was pretty brilliant.
Right. It's
Your
like,
dad, that was good advice.
It's like, it's okay. This is a way. If he's going with the money, it means it's not a healthy place for you to be. And it's better to know it now than after getting married. And he didn't.
I feel like we took more risks.
Yes, we're afraid of taking risks.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, we moved up here, nothing, I don't know. We just took a lot more risks. There's a lot of people that are afraid to take risks, and at some point in life, making good decisions under uncertainty is an art. And in fact, there's a woman by the name of Annie Duke who's got a book out, or several books, on making decisions under uncertainty that are brilliant, that talk about how we deal with uncertainty. So in my world, that's really what I do, as I help people make decisions under uncertainty. And it's not easy, and there's a lot of things you can do to make better decisions, but you never know for sure.
Right. And I would like to, if you don't mind, it sounds like I'm kind of going sideways, but we're afraid of taking risks. We're afraid of making decisions because there's a lot on the plate. And I see that I used to do pottery. So I see that taking risks and the uncertainty as that. Like,
your creation may be horrible, it may be ugly, or
well, not just that, but when you're working, so to do a pottery, to do a piece of art, you first need to choose a clay. And you need to know what's your vision? What do you want to do? If it's a plate or whatever. But you need to know what you want to make, so you'll know to have the right size. So you cannot have 1 pound of clay to create like a big vase. It's not going to work. So that's one step, right? Having a vision of where you want to go.
So you had to make a decision
ahead of time before you starting the process, right? Then you need to know you have all the tools that you need, right? Then you sit down and then you need to center the clay. It takes time first to center the clay. It's an annoying process, but if you're not working on centering the piece, you're not going to get you're not going to get what you want. So it takes time. But then it's also knowing that in order for you to get to that piece, you need to combine holding your 2 hands together, attaching your elbow to your legs, and working as one piece. Knowing if you will move your fingers too fast, you ruin. Everything will change. Or if you're going to go up, opening before going up, it will change everything. So I might kind of bring things that people are not aware of, and I might not be clear, but that's part of, I see that as a piece of art, that we need to have a vision of where we want to go, but knowing that we need to operate as a team. All my hands are working together as a team. My fingers, if I'll move fingers too fast, too quickly, it will change everything. Also knowing that it's okay. It's a piece of art and it's not going to be perfect. And that's part of the brain that needs to come into place, that prepare yourself for uncertainty or kind of things that come up. You'll be okay. It's your creation, and you will make it. You just need to be dedicated to it.
That's a great story, because some of the best art is not perfect. Like my favorite, I love music. Some of my favorite musicians, if you listen closely with a trained ear, you can tell there was like tons of mistakes. Oh, that note was out of tune, or that was off time, or they sped up here and they slowed down. But that's what made it really good, really great. And sometimes, like in today's music, everything is done computerized and it's on a grid. So it's 120 beats per minute and everything is electronically created, and it's like click, 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 and you lose the soul of the music.
Right.
So so life isn't like an art. Like there's risks with making art. There's a book called The Artist's Way that talks a lot about this. I don't know if you've seen that book. It's a great book. I highly recommend it. But yeah, I totally agree with that. And us doing this podcast today is art in my mind, because we started off with an idea, right? And you bring it into fruition. And I love art. I think business is an art.
It is.
It should be an art, because it's about human beings. Because ultimately, you're there to help make another person's, your customer, your client, whatever, have a better life, and that is an art form.
Yes.
I mean,
and that's part of relationship also, I think, that it's art also. It sounds lame and I might kind of ruin it.
No. But
it's knowing how to dance with it. Exactly. As you're working on your business, this is how important for you to work on your relationship. And we start talking about life events that impacting us, right? And if we don't see that as a work in progress, or working on what to expect, or preparing ourselves to uncertainty. Well, some stuff are certain, right? I mean, kids going to college, it's expected. We know, right? So hey,
taxes.
Right, right. But this is something we need to prepare ourselves for, right? And making harsh decisions, right? And this is where we need to learn how to. Where do we need to take off stuff so we'll have more for this, right? Or maybe we're taking too much on ourselves, right? Maybe we're saying, I'll pay for my kids, but hold on a minute, can you? If that goes to question your retirement, or if you need to take money from your retirement, I'm not sure if that's a healthy decision for you.
Now I think I understand what you're talking about with dance. Because at first I wasn't quite, but maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but in this context, dance is basically you make a movement, you make a decision, then there's an outcome. It may be unexpected. Then you have to change, you have to adapt to what is happening.
Yes.
And then you mentioned the boundaries of the retirement versus kids education or things like that. But the whole concept of a dance is very true that you don't know what the outcomes are going to be when it comes with money always, and that you must be able to dance. That's the whole concept of implementing and monitoring. So there's like depending on how you look at it, there's like 5 to 7 steps of any kind of planning process. So the biggest part where things fail is in the actions and in the monitoring and adjusting.
Right.
And financial psychology fits in actions and monitoring and implementing. Right. So that's why we're talking today. I hope we can talk again some more, maybe about other topics. This is a huge topic.
Yeah, there's so much more.
Yeah, we could talk about. Yeah. So you have a company connecting the dots.
Connecting Dots
Connecting
Counseling.
Dots. So where's the best place for people to learn more about you and reach you?
Thank you. First of all, there's my website. You can read more about me. You can book free consultation, I'll see people either virtually or at my office, which is on the DTC area. So either way.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to talk more if you're up for it.
Thank you. Yes.
Because there's a lot of ideas that I have that we haven't even talked about.
I would love to. But just one more piece. When you talked about uncertainty, I do think people need to be aware. Again, we talked about life events that they're there waiting for us. So it's important to prepare for them. So again, if it's a student loan, right? Teaching our kids that we not necessarily jumping to take student loan, but maybe finding a way to work on that, right? Again, it's skills that we cannot wake up and teaching them then. It's important to start, as you start saying, when they're young age. There's this married or having a baby, right? If you were just having a baby, or if there's unfortunate people who need to have all that process of adoption or infertility, that takes money. So we need to, again, prepare ourselves. So not everything, there's uncertainty to it. We just need to be more open-minded before we're jumping to just doing. So it's the assessment we need to do before the action.
Well, this is really good. So this is a whole different topic for me, because most of my stuff is kind of technical, and I'm really an investment guy.
Okay.
So you know that, right? I don't know if you know that.
But just something for people who are...
No. This is really good, because I think that this is needed. This concept, this discussion is needed, and it's actually more important than some of this technical stuff. Because you could have all the best predictions in the world about what's happening in the markets, but if you're not like saving enough, or if and a lot of our clients are wealthy, so it's not a matter of do I have enough or am I saving enough? It's more a matter of a lot of other things, like stuff with their kids and what do I do with my money, and having unhealthy relationships with money that leads to unhappiness in their life, which is a whole nother topic that we didn't really get to today.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you talking about all these different things and coming on, and hopefully we'll do it again.
Yeah, thank you. I enjoy that. It was lovely. Thank you for inviting me over.
Awesome. The information in this podcast is informational and general in nature and does not take into consideration the listener's personal circumstances. Therefore, it is not intended to be a substitute for specific, individualized financial, legal, or tax advice. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a final decision. WealthNet Investments is a registered investment advisor. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where WealthNet Investments and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure.